Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
The time is 12:08. I'm calling the meeting to order. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. For those of you that don't know me, but I'm almost positive everyone knows me, my name is Devon Pender. I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President for Legislative Affairs. We are honored to be joined by the President of the University of Maryland College Park, President Darrell J. Hines. He's going to address the assembly today, but as most of you should know, the agenda begins with the swearing in, but I'm going to call for a motion to amend the agenda to begin with President Hines' presentation.
Motion to amend the agenda to begin with Darrell Hines' communication. Yes.
Second.
Perfect, thank you.
This was all. Turn your mics on.
That owl.
Is what they, because that's the audio, is it also the camera?
Yes.
So if I do that, I'm not messing up anything. Okay, you're all good. I need the mic?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I just realized there wasn't one on the podium. Just so people wanted to call.
All meeting order. That's what would be funny, it's so loud. Graduate students, that's because they're eating, I understand. First of all, thank you. It really is an honor and privilege to be here and speak to this body, GSG. I want to say that I'm also grateful for your service to your fellow graduate students. We all have difficult scholarly activities to do as grad students, and you spend the time to also give back to your fellow grad students by giving back with service. So I want to just thank you for doing that. So I know the past few weeks have been very eventful and often difficult for many students, faculty, and staff, such as the nature of change in the Washington, DC, which is 8 miles, the White House is 8.1 miles away from us. And, you know, we also, all of you and many of your grants and contracts have many ties to the federal government, depending on the research that you do. However, I want you to know that the University of Maryland remains focused on its mission to provide excellence in teaching, research, and service while advancing knowledge in areas of importance to the state, nation, and of course, the world. And we do that through our strategic plan, which is entitled Fearlessly Forward. It has 4 key commitments. Number 1, to reimagine teaching and learning. Number 2, to invest in people and communities. Number 3, to advance the public good through partnership. And number 4, to work on humanity's grand challenges. Investing in people and community has been really a priority during my presidency, and I've been president now for almost 5 years. And it holds true for our focus on grad students. So for those of you who haven't been here for 5 years like me, let me tell you what your administration has tried to do for you, just for you. For example, our graduate housing stock is going to double by fall of 2026 due to the redevelopment of Old Leonardtown, a major campus response to concerns heard from you graduate students in GSG meetings back in 2020 and 2021. Old Leonardtown will accommodate more than 700 graduate students and family members, and I'm just really excited about how that will fit into our community and give you a more affordable and closer and more modern housing option. All the above will be true. Minimum stipends at the University of Maryland have gone up 46% since the fall of 2021 in meetings with your predecessor, GSG presidents that came ahead of you, and they advocated for the minimum stipend to increase to us, the leadership. And now we're 3rd among Big Ten peers in that minimum stipend. So 3rd among Big Ten institutions. In terms of finances, we've also moved several, and you probably just don't know this, but we've moved several fees that used to be fees that we charge graduate students. In fact, it amounted to about $500 in fees, mandatory fees. We moved into a model of tuition. So those of you who get tuition remission, that's a fee that you don't have to pay, right? So it keeps the $500 in your pocket. And that was, again, through advocacy by this body and many members in the 2021, 22, and 22 timeframe. And then while we never want to see our students struggle, but we know that there is food insecurity around campus, especially for graduate students. We've expanded the campus pantry, which represents, of course, a critical safety net for many members of the graduate therapy community. And we are working towards increasing content and the capacity of the pantry. We've also improved a number of our policies on parental accommodation, grievance, and faculty professional conduct. We'll also continue to expand career, professional development, and social engagement opportunities for graduate students. So I think the benefits of all of these major initiatives conducted in partnership with the GSG were reflected in the results we got from a recent belonging climate survey that we did back in March and April of last year. Do you remember the survey? All right. Let me show you, we shared the results with you. I want to emphasize and remember that this was in the height of maybe the worst time period of the Middle East crisis. We did this survey where, our community was under duress as a result of that Middle East crisis. So according to the survey, the belonging survey, 75% of our graduate students, 75% of you, are comfortable or very comfortable with the climate at the University of Maryland. And the number even gets even better. Within the classroom environment, 83% of graduate students feel comfortable or very comfortable with the climate inside of their class. So while this is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, it does show that the majority of you feel that campus climate is positive and allows you to reach hopefully your full potential. We're never perfect and we always strive to do better. National politics. The University of Maryland, of course, is not an island. And I'm sure that the classrooms, common spaces, and apartments throughout the campus and College Park, there has been a lot of trepidation about how some of the changes in the federal government can and will impact us going forward. Higher education at the University of Maryland are in kind of a unique place in space and time. In terms of the executive orders, we have seen universities are at the nexus of immigration, research, diversity, equity, and inclusion, endowment taxes, and even the possibility of the closure of the Department of Education. So it is natural to be concerned about what this means for the future of graduate education and research. However, it's also incumbent upon us all to stay calm. So what happens is a dear colleague letter comes out, or a grant is paused, or an executive order comes out, and the initial reaction is to get very upset because it affects individuals directly. But what tends to happen, just so you don't know how, if you don't know this, executive orders are not law. They're a policy statement. And any person can write an executive order and say an individual or a group of folks should do A, B, or C, but it's got to be within the context of law. So what you've seen happen is that one of the states, let's say Massachusetts, in the case of the NIH 15% F&A rate, the state of Massachusetts decides that that's illegal. They filed a lawsuit. Other states joined the lawsuit. State of Maryland joined the lawsuit. We, as part of Massachusetts, University of Maryland, Johns Hopkins, all the universities that do research, joined that lawsuit to put a temporary restraining order on that executive order. That meaning that it couldn't be enacted. It has to go through a hearing in the court. So that's why what I'm saying to you is to remain calm. Don't get, don't see it as completely fact. Let the courts adjudicate what is actually legal to do. So we believe that we're in good standing and that the 15% F&A rate will not hold. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods in any sense. It just means you have to go through a process, right, to see how that gets adjudicated in the court system. So one of the most important developments that we have seen in the last few weeks is the mobilization of higher education and organizations in unprecedented ways to challenge these executive orders and dear colleague letters in the federal court system. In fact, I've never knew more about the court system than I've known about the court system in the last 5 weeks. I have to tell you, it's like I didn't know how it all worked. Now I completely know how it works, and I'm all in in our judiciary process and how the legal system is going to be used to counter what's going on. So just to give you an idea of these major organizations that also have never worked together. By the way, all of these organizations in the history of their existence, so the American Association of Public Land Grant Universities, which is APLU, which we're a member of because we're a land grant institution. The American Association of Universities, which is the AAU, the highest for the most productive research universities in the United States, and the American Council on Education have never ever before come together as three organizations, and they had never filed a lawsuit against anybody. And now they filed 5 in the last 5 weeks on different things, on DEI, on immigration, documented students, on F&A rates, and the list goes on and on. So we're fighting back in the legal way. So legal challenges, of course, take time, and many of these issues will likely end up at the Supreme Court. We hope that the Supreme Court will be in favor of us, the plaintiffs. So in the meantime, I'm making sure the University of Maryland is continuing to engage with representatives of DC, our federal delegation, and other colleagues who are working on behalf of higher education. We also continue to listen to new ideas. After all, it's never been a coincidence that our mascot is a terrapin, which is a turtle. Don't know that. I just gave you a turtle. Then terrapins, as you know, I want you to always remember, because you are now terrapins. We always keep moving forward, right? We are also willing to take risks and stick our necks out. And the most thing I want you never to forget as graduate students and as terrapins, you are fearless. You're fearless. You should always be fearless. Fearless in your research. I mean, what is research all about? Exploring the unknown. Discovery. Because you decided to be a graduate student at the University of Maryland in a discipline of interest to you, to take on a project that you don't have the answer to on day one, right? Remember that? You came in, somebody gave you a topic, started working with your supervisor. For those of you who are doctoral students, even some of you are master's students, and you remember how nervous you were, and you got that topic, and remember how nervous you might still be, because you don't have the solution to that topic yet. But that's the joy of being fearless and embarking on a journey that you don't know the answer to at the beginning of the journey, but at the end of the journey, you will in fact find an answer to the problem that you're looking at. And that is the exploratory nature of graduate life. So I'm just delighted that you guys are all here. So I want everyone in this room to know that throughout the university, we remain optimistic, and we are committed about reimagining learning, investing in people and communities, partnering to advance the public good, and having all of you work on these grand challenge research projects that you're all working on that advance society and hopefully translates the best practices. There's no better gateway to be a graduate than being a graduate student. I want you to know that you are the hope of the country. You know, if I could go back, I would be a grad student for my whole life. Because you think it's really bad. It's not. I know you feel that way. I used to feel that way. I mean, 2 things. Like when you're an undergrad, you kind of feel like you're with the undergrads. Everybody has a cohort group. You're hanging out. You do things together. And then when you're a graduate student, you're like, I'm isolated. Like it's only me against the world, right? Am I right? It's like you feel like it's you against, or maybe you have a little cohort of your lab or your group. But you often feel, because you come in at different times, that it's just me against the world, the department, the university, everybody. But the cool part is that you're working on some interesting topic. You meet interesting people, but being in the GSG, group, and you're able to take whatever the university offers you, and you should leverage it. You know, when I was an engineering student at MIT, I took all these classes in math just for fun. It had nothing to do with my degree program, but I wanted to know something like I was always into the math, so I wanted to know the highest level math. I wanted to know something called Lebesgue measure theory. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Lebesgue measure theory. See, that's, you don't even know what I'm talking about. It's okay. But now I was a nerd person, so I love like just taking math, right? So I would take these extra classes, and because I was just interested in subjects. And so that's what I mean. That's what you get as a graduate student. You don't tell your advisor you're taking these courses, because that's when I had to like hide the transcripts from my advisor, so he would never know I was taking these courses. Like, where is he at? He's not in the lab taking that course. Because I never got approval from my advisor to take these courses, but I would take these courses because that is what the graduate experience is all about, is to advance your own aptitude in other areas as well, not just in your core discipline. I took business school courses, and I didn't have nothing to do with taking business school courses, other than I wanted to know about finance. So my story to you is that this is actually the best time in your life. Because you're gonna solve a problem. You're gonna potentially write a master's thesis or a paper, or a scholarly paper, or a dissertation. And you're gonna be very proud of the work that you do. And in some view, it will actually advance and lead to best practices, or it may lead to something that gets IP, intellectual property, a patent, a software tool, something that will advance the field or advance society. That's why we are putting our eggs on you guys and into the right basket, so that you guys can solve those grand challenges facing society. So with that, as a concluding remark, thank you for letting me speak to you today. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. And I don't want you guys to have any angst about what's happening downtown. I know you do. And don't worry, we're on top of it. We're gonna send out a message, by the way, we're sending out a message to the campus community. It'll probably come out on Monday and Tuesday to give people some guidance as to what we're seeing with the executive orders and your colleague letters, and what grants and contracts have been paused, as well as right now, we just found out yesterday that if you're on a Fulbright fellowship or scholarship, those have been paused now for 15 days. So we're in communication with the Fulbright programs about reactivating those fellowships and scholarships for people on our campus. So we are on top of it. We're tracking almost everything that's going on in Washington. And hopefully the site that we'll put out on Tuesday will give you some guidance as well, and allow you guys to kind of not get too upset about what's going on and just focus on what you're supposed to be focused on. So thank you so much, and happy to answer any questions.
As always,
And please introduce yourself.
in your program,
Yeah.
please.
Okay.
Should I give the mic? Oh.
There is. Hello, I am Henry Husband. I'm the proxy for the Atmospheric and Organic Science Department. And my question is, when do you and the administration intend to recognize the reality on the ground and the will of the vast majority of grads on this campus and recognize and begin bargaining with the graduate labor union?
So we have a perspective that graduate assistantships is all about academic training, not employment. Just like when undergraduates play in our sports, they're not employees. They're in training as well. That's our viewpoint. The relationship will change. So let me just give you some examples. I understand and I support whatever you want to do, but you asked me for my perspective. My perspective is graduate assistantships is about graduate training. You're in developmental training, you're learning from your supervisors. If we move to a modality of bargaining, now you don't have to agree with me, but I'm telling you this is what's going to happen because we've seen it happen at all the other schools around the nation. So let's take the University of California system. So they moved to collective bargaining in the entire system. Guess what happened? 1/3 of the graduate students went away. Because there's only a finite, that's true. That's true. I've talked to the president of the University of California system. So that's one casualty of moving to collective bargaining. Another one that happens is that the relationship between the supervisor and the committee and the graduate students is an important relationship. And we have conversations like with the GSG president. We meet, I don't know how often we meet, for at least three or four times a semester, right? And those conversations cannot happen where she voices her concerns that is a representative of the body of graduate students, and we hear them, and we try to act on them. The ones that I just mentioned to you at the beginning of my remarks were all in collaboration with the GSG and graduate students. So you can shake your head and that's fine, but and I respect your ability to pursue that. And if you notice this past session, none of the administration has spoken against you. None of the administration has spoken against you. Definitely not me, definitely not the provost. So we allow you to go to the State House and make your case. So that's my response. And I don't want this to be a back and forth about collective bargaining, right? But you're welcome to ask another question.
Hi, I'm Rose. I'm the representative from the Neuroscience and Cognitive Science program. And I am also a graduate labor union member.
Yep.
I do want to point out that Dean Roth did actually go to testify against us in the Senate. I won't go too much back and forth on that. My question, I do have an actual question though, because we have spoken with other student representatives on other councils, I believe, some of the USM councils. And they passed us some interesting notes, and I'm going to read from them verbatim, so I don't misconstrue anything. Assumption of UMD admin is that collective bargaining for grads is not worth dealing with because grads are here for under 10 years. There's enough turnover that Pines can ignore us. Pines takes faculty more seriously because if they leave, it matters more, and they are usually here for 20 to 30 years. Students are going to keep coming with or without collective bargaining. Happy to take advantage of international students because they are less likely to stand up. If people from the US don't want to apply because of low stipends, poor working conditions, lack of collective bargaining rights, we'll just take more international students. Quote, there is a line of people waiting to take these spots. So my question is, how do you reconcile UMD's mission of investing in people and communities and advancing the public good with the sentiments that you and presumably other UMD administrators in these meetings displayed? And I specifically would like you to address the part about international grads because it shows a distinct awareness that the current working conditions at UMD are not actually as great as you stated that they were, but that they can be exploitative. And a distinct awareness that international grads are uniquely vulnerable to this exploitation due to their visa situation.
So first of all, you're reading someone's opinion. You never heard me say anything. But what you just heard is what I just responded to Henry's question. That's the first time you heard me say anything. Is that correct? Ruth, have you heard me talk to you about this issue ever before?
No, I haven't,
Okay, so
but I
you're
believe,
reading
I
someone's
believe
quote
the
that
student
that is someone's
representatives know.
perception, is someone's perception, but they've not even asked that question to me. So all those comments are false, number one. Number two, I'm here because I care about you. I go to meetings because I care about you. I gave you the list of things that we've been working on because I care about you. I've been a graduate student. I know what it's all about. We have improved the relationship and policies for the supervisor and supervisee, which are graduate students. And no, it's not correct that we try to get international students to replace domestic students. We get the best students from around the world because they want to come here to University of Maryland. Like domestic students want to come here to university to get a world-class graduate education and to get a degree. We don't care where they come from. We are not targeting international students over domestic students. We're not targeting domestic students over international students. We're targeting all students. What I'm so proud about, let me just give you a statistic. Students come to the University of Maryland from 86 countries in the world. And from every zip code, from every continent. That makes me proud that we can attract that kind of diverse talent from around the world. And so we in our undergraduate program. So we are here to attract the best talent to work on these grand challenge problems, and we are here to invest in their futures. And wherever we think there's a problem, or we see a problem, we could get communicated to us from you guys, we try to work on it and try to fix it. And I'm honestly saying that to you genuinely, and those are my answers to your question.
I know. Can I have the microphone? Okay, thank you. Hi, President Hines. Thank you for your talk. I have one comment and then I have one question. Oh, sorry, I'm Nora Jameson. I'm from the School of Public Health. I'm a PhD program representative for epidemiology and biostatistics. One of my comments being, I am a TA for the university. I have a TA-ship. I've also taught for 6 years professionally at community college. I am helping my department by teaching for them. And I'm not really being trained to teach because I've known how to teach. I'm getting tuition remission and I'm guaranteed it because I'm a flagship fellow. So they can't take it away, which is one of the reasons I've been advocating so hard for a union, because they can't take away my TA-ships. But they can of other students within 2 days of classes starting, and that happened this semester. So I want to say, they don't use meet and confer where it started, where Dean Roth created it in the School of Public Health. Because going up against a professor that wrongs you means it's gonna be much harder to get any type of recommendation letter from that department. Meet and confer doesn't work when we need to advocate for our needs when we have been wronged, rightfully so. And my next question. That was my comment. My next question is. There was recently no approval for a cost of living increase for our stipends. But there was a merit increase approval for presidents at the USM system this 2025 year. We know that budgets are being cut in USM across the USM and that department budgets are being cut by at least 3%. Do you plan on taking your merit percentage increase?
I don't know about that being passed at the system level. First of all, the COLA and merit, I don't think it has, I think you're wrong about that. I haven't seen it. No one has spoken to any of the presidents about it. This year, I think the COLA is going to go and merit will go to our union workers. That's a commitment that we made with the system. That's a commitment we made with the system and our collective bargaining units for our staff. And so, so that's what's gonna happen going forward. There is a 5% cut that we've been asked to take by the system and by the state. So that's something we have to figure out, and we're gonna do our best to focus on like freezing hiring across the university, and working on ways to do some cost savings, but try to make sure that no one really is going to be laid off, especially graduate students. So that's our focus, is to try to find other ways to deal with the budget cuts in a productive way that keeps everyone here at Maryland and working towards their goals. And Nora, thank you for your comment. We are trying to improve meet and confer. It's not uniform across the university. You're absolutely right. We've got a lot of work to do there, but I appreciate your sensitivity to the issues that you think other students are facing in terms of the guarantees, and we're trying to work on those policies as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you so much. Do you have time for one more question?
I have time for more questions. Absolutely.
Alexa?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alexa. I'm a second year student in bioengineering. And my question's kind of revolving around funding. So in my department and a lot of others, in the sciences,
Yeah.
there's a lot of NIH grant
Yes.
funding, which has been a source of a lot of,
Stress.
yes.
Yes.
And I was just wondering if UMD has a plan kind of going forward, if some of those cuts are made, and if that does eventually impact like
Yes.
funding for graduate students, and their fellowships, things like that.
Yeah, so clearly we are very worried about this issue, because at NIH, in many ways, they put a pause on a lot of funding, as I'm sure you're aware, across the United States, right, not just the university. Right? And then there's this issue of the F&A rate, which, they put out a dear colleague letter on a Friday night at 5 p.m. for that 15% to be inactive by Monday, the next, business day. So, so we are looking at everyone who's funded by NIH grants. And we are probably going to try to find a way, first, we're working with our federal delegation to get that money reactivated. So there's a lot of push from around the country, and those organizations like American Public Land Grant Universities, AAU, AC is, really putting a lot of pressure on Congress to put pressure on NIH to get that sort of faucet turned back on. That's number one. Number two, we're fighting back against the 15% F&A rate. So, but in lieu of that, we are looking at everyone that's funded, graduate students are funded on the NIH grants, and trying to find a way to keep them funded until we hear back from the court system, right, as we get into the summer. So we're just projecting to the summer. So that is what we are doing. You will hear back from your supervisor, through the department chair, through the dean. But that's what we're looking at. And we're doing that, by the way, not just at NIH grants, we're looking at a lot of other things as well. So.
Thank you.
But it is stressful, because this is happening around the country. And it's created a lot of uncertainty, these federal workforce cuts, program cuts, coming so quickly and indiscriminately. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before in the United States. So, our job though is to try to protect, you guys and make sure that you guys can, continue on doing your good work. So, and that's what we're focused on.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Michael has their hand up online.
Michael, go forward.
Hi, thank you, President Pines. My name is Michael Bailey. I'm a, I believe, 12th year PhD student in history, finishing up real soon. But I'm also the Vice President for Financial Affairs and Student Fee Matters of GSG. Thank you so much for being here. My question is actually about fees. I have two of them, but they're really quick. One, I do appreciate you mentioning the fee restructuring that happened a few years ago. I hope that everyone in this room knows about it because when we talked about fees for this year, it was something we talked about. One, I appreciate your your leadership about the student health center fee, which I know was something that was a little bit controversial between grads and undergrads. My first question is just, do you see maybe a future for that fee going forward? My second question is just to ask about if it is true that graduate students might still anticipate a 4% increase in mandatory fees for next year. If this COLA, I believe it's like a COLA and merit goes through at the state level. Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you so much.
So on your first question, when we wrote about $500 into tuition, which therefore went into tuition remission, one of those was a health center fee before this new fee concept came up. I think there was the original health center fee, and I can't remember what the amount was. And so when this new health center fee got proposed, we listened to Laura, who was your spokesperson, in our fee committee. And, we just felt, collectively, the administration felt like this is probably not the right time, first of all, to do a fee. That's number one. And then going forward, we are trying to figure out whether we can do a similar thing is take this new health center fee and push it into tuition and get it by tuition remission. I can't guarantee you we're gonna be successful in doing that. When we were successful last time, Michael, we got approval from the USM Board of Regents to do it. So we will have to get approval from the Board of Regents to do this as well. But that's really, I really strongly believe, which is why I did it the first time, that the health center should be a service to all graduate students and should not be a fee. That's how I've always felt, but my colleagues and some other students don't feel that way. Clearly your undergraduate counterparts don't feel that way. They feel that there should be a separate fee. So I don't think it's gonna go forward this year, just based on the tough budget year that it is. And then if it goes forward in the future, my hope is that it gets inserted back into tuition. That's where we are. Oh, and then your second comment was about a 4% COLA and merit. Can you ask that question again? Because I'm not sure if I was clear on that question.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, thank you so much for the first one. The second one is just that, the GSG fee setting committees and the CRSF have already, approved various fee increases for next year. But it's my understanding, sitting on a few of these fee setting boards, that there might be an additional increase because of a COLA and merit that might go through, like an additional, I think, 4%. So that the numbers that we saw here at GSG and that CRSF, those of us on it saw, might actually go up, and we won't know until the state gives us numbers.
I don't remember an increase. I don't remember increase. I think whatever came to to our cabinet meeting from the committee was as it was. I don't remember anything being added to it. So whatever that was approved by you guys, I think we approved. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just wanting to say if you've heard anything about this, because I think those of us on CRSF, Vara, myself, and undergraduates also saw that there could be additional increases beyond what we approved. So I was just wondering if you had heard that. But I heard that we won't really know until April, May. So
that's right. But I have not heard that at all. So
thank you.
Any other questions? There's one more.
This will be our last one.
Okay, sorry, I know I'm interfering with your meeting, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. As long as you have the time.
No,
This
no,
is what it's about.
I don't know what time it is.
12:42.
Oh, okay, so I have to be at a 1 o'clock meeting.
Yeah, so one more
question?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Perfect. Yes.
Hello,
Yeah,
I'm Samyak and I'm here on the proxy of Smrithan from chemical physics.
Okay.
So I'm a first year student.
Mhm.
And a major issue that I've faced this year is that in departments like chemical physics, which are small cohort and don't have their own courses being floated, the guarantee of a TA after the first year is very less because we have to take TAship in other departments like physics or chemistry or sometimes math. So up till now, I don't think there's been an easy solution to this problem because I've seen some of my seniors getting sort of stranded after their first year if they don't have a guaranteed RA.
Yes.
So in that case, either the person has to switch to a different professor working. I mean, if they're working with someone in their first year, got an experience in a field, and they switch over to another professor after their first year, it's in ways very difficult. So a graduate labor union in this context would, I think, preserve the rights of graduate assistants in many ways. I mean,
I think in some sense you're right, it would create structure and a more of a guarantee. I think, I know chemical physics, this actually came up to me, there's another grad student that I met in chemical physics who had a TA problem. And he ended up getting it's interesting, he ended up getting a long-term TA ship in math, which gave him a multi-year guarantee. So we're, obviously every unit is different, and chemical physics unfortunately doesn't guarantee, beyond the year. So we're trying to normalize that so that it's more consistent across our units and working with, Steve Roth and our graduate school to try to normalize where we can make longer term commitments and not just 1 year commitments from year to year. But that always depends on the money that the unit has. In this case, chemical physics doesn't have a lot of money as a unit, but the college does, that it sits in. So it's still a work in progress. So I'm sorry that you have to go through that in chemical physics. Okay,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate your words and your remarks and you sharing your time with us today.
Yeah, and anyone not get a turtle pin from me? Wants a turtle pin?
I'll take that. Perfect. While we transition, I'm just going to call for a motion to move to the swearing in ceremony.
Motion to move to the swearing in ceremony.
Perfect. Laura, the floor is yours.
So, all the new representatives who have just been elected, please raise your right hand and repeat after me the oath of office. In the presence of honored guests
Presence of honored guests
and members here assembled,
and members here assembled,
I do so solemnly promise
I do so solemnly promise
and pledge
and pledge
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
execute the duties
execute the duties
of the Assembly
of the Assembly
as a program representative
as a program representative
of the graduate student government
of the graduate student government,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to commit myself to the student government's
commit myself to the student government's
code of ethics,
core of ethics,
further the objectives of this student government,
further the objectives of this student government,
to serve my fellow graduate student community
fellow graduate student community,
through engagement
engagement
with my constituents
with my constituents,
and voting according to the
voting according to the
preferences of my constituent body.
preferences of my constituent body.
Okay, you can stop repeating that. By the authority vested in me by the graduate student government, I now proclaim you duly installed as program representatives and voting members of the graduate student government assembly.
Don't mind me, I'm just gonna awkwardly try to take it over and wait for Devon to come back. Because I can't actually move forward without him. But seriously, thank you all for the newly elected reps for showing up, and also for our committee chairs who are also, a couple of you are here. I do appreciate it, even though We know it can be a hassle sometimes to get out of bed in time to actually make campus and do things. And I'll stop wasting time because they have our PPLA.
Thanks for holding it down.
It takes 2 people to get you on.
Good, good. You are good. Um. I believe the next thing on the agenda, I apologize while I pull this up. Mr. President's address
Yeah.
after the president's address. Okay, motion to move to the president's address. Second.
Thank you.
Podium, podium, podium. Assembly has spoken.
Second it on the podium.
It has been seconded.
Take my coffee for this.
Motion to slow down.
The motion cannot slow down. The motion is moving. Oh, I can see Michael Sophic over here. Hi, Michael. I mean. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to see you all in person yet again, even though we had to force few of you here, so that's not really fortunate, but anyway. The major thing I want to cover today is the cabinet meeting that I was a part of. So Michael already mentioned in detail what happened during the students review meeting, which we both were a part of. But since we all know that the health center fee did pass in the CRSF, so we had to raise our points in cabinet. And before I increase the suspense more, I think most of you do know, but I'm just stating it again, that the health center fee did not go through. So that's saving $130 something for next year, which is great. But basically, in the cabinet meeting, sorry, the undergrad president raised, she mentioned a few points about the health center fee. A few statistics about if this fee does not go through, then there will be a few cuts in the staffing and other things. But by the end of it, when I mentioned that there are various reasons why the entire assembly or the people who have spoken to their reps, why they're so opposed to it, especially with the Google form that was circulated by Michael. So the things that we discussed about was the firstly that the funding is being pulled. So that's like additional financial stress because of which this is like more of a burden than it would have been otherwise. How Reese also raised the point of how grad students are the major users of the campus pantry, which goes to show that there's not really food insecurity. And $136 is actually more than the monthly grocery bill for a lot of grad students. Most grad students don't even have to worry about their parents seeing their medical records, most of them. And that was one of the major reasons this fee was proposed, because some of them are dependent on their health insurance, so hence. Yeah, I'm reading crazy. Also most grad students are not a part of SHIP. Only 13% grad students are enrolled in SHIP. Others are either on their state employment plan or any other plan that they like. And Dr. Vinopoulos, when he proposed this fee, he mentioned how the amount that is reduced for SHIP is going to be more than the amount proposed for the fee. So that only works for 13% grad students, which is not enough. We also don't live on campus like undergrads, so it is not the most accessible to us. We have other medical or health places that we would want to go. And UHC is inaccessible when needed for a lot of grad students because we don't decide when to get in. So based on all of these things, all of them did agree, as President Pines mentioned, that either this can be included in the tuition, which would of course, face some backlash from other stakeholders because your professors have to apply for grants and then this gets cut from the grants, which means that there's lesser money for research. But they were also talking about, so when we look at the breakdown for the health center fee, only $15-ish was there for all the facilities that will be needed or will be provided as per this fee. The rest of it is not really needed for that particular services itself. So they were also wondering if we can have $15 as the health center fee, which would be really good. And the rest of it could be covered from other sources of funding. But currently, thankfully, it has stopped, though we need stronger arguments, a louder voice for next year if this is proposed again, which I'm assuming it will be. Since this fee was originally proposed by the previous undergraduate president and Reese was just following up on. So that was one major update. The second thing I wanted to talk about, I was holding it wrong the entire time, sorry. The second thing I wanted to talk about is, even though we have a lot of people here, this is still the formal place to make this announcement. As a lot of people wouldn't be aware, but Devon recently sent emails to a lot of grad students, either warning them about their attendance in the assembly and the committees, or asking them a reason. We had given them a timeline to respond to. If they did respond with a valid reason, then we did consider it. Otherwise, they are in violation of the bylaws and the constitution of the graduate student government. When you take up this position, you are signing up for the hours for the assembly and the committee that you join. So if you guys are not attending your committee meetings, not responding to your committee co-chairs, or not sending proxies to the assembly, if you're sending proxies, that's fine. If you're not, you are in violation and we are taking steps against it. So that's just a little, not a warning, but a preview for what's to come. So if you want to maintain this position, please respond to the emails of your committee chairs, co-chairs of D1, myself, any of the exec team members. Please be active. That's what you signed up for. And if there is a genuine reason, of course, we're not the devil, we will consider it. But there has to be communication on your part to let us know that you will not be attending prior to the meeting, not after, not during. Please try and work with the people who are trying to work with you. So that's all for today. And I'm done with my address.
And one more note to that I just want to quickly add is, if you're facing something in your personal life, please just communicate it. It's just really difficult to track everyone down. So if we have 20 representatives come to an assembly meeting and quorum might be 15 people, and then people start dropping and for personal reasons, for class, whatever it is, we can't vote on anything, or we can't even have a real discussion because we don't even have quorum at that point. So it becomes just a challenge of us doing our basic duties as an assembly. So if you do have anything personal, please just communicate that. You don't need to go into the specifics, but it's a difference between saying, I can't be here, I have to go to Kohl's and go shopping, or I can't be here, and I hope no one actually had this experience. My dog is sick, my dog has something, or my child or my family member, there's something serious going on. Again, you don't need to go into the specifics, but just think about the severity of the event that's conflicting with your schedule and just communicate that rather than us making assumptions.
Yeah, and you don't even need to let us know of the reason if you're sending a proxy. Like you can just be like, hey, I cannot be here because of personal reasons. Here's my proxy. So I do that too.
Any questions, discussion, Nora?
So I'm a PhD program representative for epidemiology, which has maybe about 10 PhD students in my department on campus that I know, and I know them, and I have their phone numbers, and I asked them to be my proxy, and none of them do it. And this happened last year, and I didn't get in trouble, but that is a problem, and I even asked if I could ask a master's student, and they said it wasn't cool, that I needed to find a PhD program rep, which is sometimes just impossible for PhD programs when there's only like 3 people in my cohort, and I am the extrovert of my entire department. So like to say that I can't find someone to be my proxy is like sort of important.
So it also comes down to you cannot find a proxy for. Do you wanna add to that? Or-
To add to that, is there a way we can make an amendment or a change to the Constitution allowing for masters and PhD students within the same program to be considered as proxies? Is that something we can do?
Yeah, I will address that. So that is already the case if your program also has masters and PhDs. Some programs are PhDs only, some programs are masters only, some are both. If it's both, anyone from that program, that letter code is the thing that matters. If they have the same letter code, they can be your proxy. If they don't, they can't. We can change the Constitution or the bylaws in this case to change that. There are downsides to that, but
Yeah,
it is something that can be done.
it might even be worthwhile to make it like school instead of like department wide. Because like even within the EPI department, like someone from behavioral and community health would say very similar things to me. So I wouldn't like be super upset if someone came from their department.
But like for my case, I'm in the higher education department, which is within HESI, the Higher Ed Student Affairs and International Education Policy Program. I have a concentration in higher education, and I see that it'd be convenient for me to be able to set a proxy from HESI overall. So just something to consider for the future as we seek elections in the future,
We are
maybe
amending
something that we
them
can.
if they were working.
That's beautiful.
Thank
Do we
you.
have like some program rep from HESI?
I am from HESI, but from higher education, concentration of HESI.
There's no international ed policy or student affairs rep.
I'm the higher ed rep from HESI, so
Do we not have a rep because there's nobody who's interested, or do we?
no
not-
one is interested. I ran as a sole contender, so
Yeah, that's same.
won that election with a landslide.
I think we should make your positions paid to, right? That would really.
If this position was stipend, I do feel that that would make it more incentivizing.
Yeah,
But I feel that we'd have to have more structure with attendance
yeah,
and more consistent duties.
yeah.
That can be followed through, because I feel that there's a lack of participation in committees as well. Like I know Alexa, she does fantastic work, academic affairs, right, with academic affairs committee, and every time we meet, no one comes, and there are 4 people in that email chain, and it is quite exhausting to see the efforts of a chair go to waste.
So if you do not respond to Alexa, you'll be fired by the end of the week.
She, oh,
No, not Alexa, the people who don't.
I thought you were saying it'll be, I said she will be fired.
Other comments? Seeing none, thank Bar.
Motion to proceed to Michael's address.
Seconded.
Ooh, Michael. Oh.
Okay, I was like, does that mean I get to go? I didn't hear Devon say.
Seconded.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Okay, I guess just first of all, just on that, we can always raise the graduate activities fee. Not that we want to, but we can't. And these are things to think about. I guess one of the things that I wasn't even planning on talking about today, but I should, is that I'm gonna start working on the budget for next year. So number one, if anyone has any feelings for what the budget next year should look like, and if it should be different than this year's, if we feel like we're not allocating enough money towards something or other, reach out, let me know, or you can just yell at me here. That's also fine. I'm also happy always to share the budget for this year. Just so we all know what we're talking about. I can also put it in the assembly chat just so everyone knows. So that is the first thing I want to say. The second is I just wanted to give a little update about fees. I kind of alluded to it in my question to President Pines, which I was a little surprised he wasn't more informed on. But if it allows me to share my screen here, I will do that. I'm just gonna screen, so sorry for the little exception moment. Here we go. Okay, so this was an email that I got from CRSF. A bunch of us, I guess everyone on CRSF community for the review of student fees got this. But basically, because of the state of Maryland's multi-billion-dollar budget crisis, there are the schedule for how fees will be approved is being disrupted. And in my personal opinion, and I will try to gather more information about this, I think it's kind of unacceptable. Because tuition and mandatory fees won't be approved until May. And what that means, and let me go over here, is that basically the fees that we all voted on, or I guess technically we didn't vote, whatever, that I presented to you, let's say, in the assembly meeting in, I believe, December, and also that the Committee for the Review of Student Fees, which has graduate representative in the people of me and Vara, that we voted on and approved at CRSF might actually change and go up significantly. So this is a screenshot of a slide that I got from CTAC, the Campus Transportation Committee. And so the shuttle fees they're anticipating, you can see at the bottom here, it says assumes a 4% fee increase over the current proposal to cover the full cost of COLA and merit. So instead of going up like 5.6%, they're saying now the shuttle fees, if this 4% increase for COLA and merit, which as I understand it, is in the governor's proposal that is going to be taken up by the assembly. So if that is passed as is in its current form, that would mean that COLA and merit costs are going to go up 4% beyond what was projected. So we don't know that this will happen, first of all. We have to see what the assembly is actually going to do. From what I've heard from UMD staff people, they don't think it's going to pass, but no one has a crystal ball and knows. So it's possible that instead of the numbers that you all saw before, the shuttle, for instance, will go up an additional 4%. This was also, they proposed this as well. Why isn't this swiping for me? Okay, here we go. They proposed it as well to go into the parking. So basically, these are updates that I have from CTAC, from Campus Transportation. But from what I understand, I think we could see this 4% kind of be added across the board to the other fee proposals. And that seems bad to me. What I understand at the from the CTAC meeting, folks were saying that these increases, if there are increases in like state budgets for COLA and merit, usually what happens is that they're made up the following year. So the proposals would just go through as they usually are, and then they would tack on something to like pay for it next year. But for some reason, maybe because it's just so much money, they're trying to knock it into next year's fees already. Which if there's a fee process, that means that, individual committees that set fees like CTAC already approved something, it goes to the Committee for the Review of Student Fees. We approve something that goes onto the president's cabinet, who approves something, then it could be switched up at the very end. That seems bad to me. So I just wanted to let you all know that that is happening. And I will try to keep you all informed on it. So if our fees are going to go up across the board an additional 4%, we should know about it and be able to complain. So yeah, that was my big update for today. I will keep you all posted on what is going on with fees as I understand and learn more about them. So yeah, thank you so much. And I'm happy to take any questions or comments that folks have. Thank you.
Nora, go ahead.
Thank you, Michael. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I only have one comment. I also texted you, so you have it in writing too. Which is, I think, the executive team positions, if it's possible to make them all 20-hour positions instead of some of them being 10-hour-a-week positions, I would recommend that. If that's something within the budget, that's something I would hope to see for the future executive team and operations.
Thanks. Yeah, we can talk about that. Just the only big thing, and if I can pull this up really fast, I will just show you all. I don't want to go super over time, but let me just share my screen and pull up the budget for this year, this is the current operating budget that we have. The biggest part of the GSG budget is staffing, $120,573. And so that would mean that these two VP ships would be double the cost. So that would take a huge chunk of money, probably even more. I don't know, probably even more than we have in the rest of the budget combined. So I don't think that's going to be possible for this year. It is always a possibility in the future, if this is something that we feel strongly about, to bring this up. Like it would be in the fall. We would have to talk with well, I was going to say Allie, who's our current budget manager, but I think Allie is transitioning back to her old role, and they're going to hire someone new to be our budget person for next year. Val was our longtime budget person. So whoever is in that budget manager position next year, we would have to talk to them because that would involve raising the graduate student activities fee, which maybe we feel strongly enough about, like that is something that's a priority. But I think right now, just our budget doesn't support that. But it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, thank you for the insights, Michael. I appreciate it.
Other questions, comments, Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy from Public Policy. Thanks, Michael, for the helpful overview. I just wanted to clarify something from President Pine's presentation. When he mentioned like the $500 in fees that we're saving because it's for tuition. So is that like, so if students have tuition remission and like they don't have to like cover that, quote unquote, cover that 500, is that a cost that's dissolved by the school, like departments themselves, or like, because I feel like tuition is different for each department in school.
Sure. Yeah. So what President Pines was talking about was, I think it was for the 21-22 school year, although it might have been after. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But basically there were like a few $100s worth of fees. I think he said it was around 500. I can try to pull it up, but basically, yeah, there were fees. Like there was a technology fee, there was a library fee, there was a health center fee. There were a couple more too. But these fees were rolled into tuition. Like the argument was that the things that they supported were core functions of the campus and more appropriately supported by tuition than by fees. So, you know, those of us who have assistantships that have tuition remission, then that is just included in the tuition cost that I assume gets billed. I think that gets billed to departments. I don't know if departments get like some kind of discounted rate or not in terms of how tuition is billed. But yeah, that's something that doesn't come out of our pockets in fees. That said, you know, folks who are paying tuition, whether they're, undergraduates, or whether they're grad students who do not have assistantships with tuition remission, you know, that's still something that, you know, the money's going to come out of your pocket.
Thanks.
Other questions? Seeing none at this time, can I get a motion to move to the Director of Operations address?
Motion to go to the operators to journals.
Seconded.
Thanks all. Thanks all. I guess I'm moving up to the podium too. All right, it's just how it's going. I mean, we have one, might as well use it. And get the owl to focus on someone that is just a random person in the audience, which is what it usually does. Okay, so. Hi, everyone. I'm not gonna be up here for too long. I just wanted to start by detouring a little bit and provide some historical context. So regarding budgeting and paying for staff positions, we would love to have everyone working 20 hours. It'd be lovely if Var and I were not the only two actually doing that. Because there's a lot more than 10 hours of work a week for both the VPs and our chief of staff as well. Should probably be more than 5 hours or whatever it ends up being, 10 hours. Yeah, right. But like an hourly rate as opposed to an actual. So yeah, that'd be nice. The reality of it though is that this is like the best worst option we have. In the past, what happened is that there was like everyone was on there's a fancy word for it, it's leaving my mind. But it wasn't paid, it wasn't GA shares, it was paid as a honorarium or something equivalent to that. And that basically just meant that people are doing the same amount of work for even less money. So it is a balance point that we are trying to figure out, and that does segue into what I was gonna be discussing in the bylaws section of things. But just to keep in mind, like, our budget is limited, it's gonna get more limited. But we also have more and more work, it definitely feels like, so, we don't have an answer. But if you have thoughts on, to actually really go back a little further, the reason why Vara was trying to say, like, stress the importance of people showing up and participating is, when you don't, it just means more work for us, and then we work overtime and don't get paid for it. And we're not supposed to work overtime, we all do it anyway. It'd really be nice to not have to do that. So that is why it matters. It's much more important to have people who are willing to put time into committees, put time into those programs than it is just to have your name on the list. So with that said, my first update is bylaws, speaking of. So we are doing a constitutional bylaws review this year, as I'm sure you've heard from me several times at this point. We are moving into the final stages of editing the bylaws. The constitution's already been completed. The plan is for our next assembly, so that'll be the March assembly. We will be bringing a report of proposed assembly level changes. That would be the bylaws. The constitution requires a vote of the student body. So we will have that for you next time. I'm going to try to send it out like a week before the assembly, so you all have time to look at it. So next time, my section will be much longer because we'll be actually discussing and voting on the changes. So just keep that in mind. Actually, we will probably be voting in April, but we'll be discussing it at least next time, so we don't completely run over. If you have thoughts, if you look at the constitution or the bylaws and you have, like, that doesn't make sense, that would be, why is this a certain way? Can you clarify it? Please let me know. GSG operations is the email. Just let me know, and I'm happy to take input. You don't have to be part of the committee. You can also attend our committee meetings if you'd like. They should usually be scheduled on the calendar that is public for everyone in the assembly. And if it's not on there, let me know and I'll make sure it is. Okay, so with that said, moving on, for those of you who are new, we do have a list of representatives listed on the website. Your name should all be up there if you're one of the newly elected folks. But I don't have your additional identifiers, which be pronouns, honorifics, etc. If you have any of those you want to send my way, or if you want me to correct how you appear on the website, let me know. Also, please send me a photo so I can have a headshot up there as well. Right now, you're all just the official GSG seal that you can see on our tablecloth over there. But if you'd like to actually have your face, that'd be great. Okay, as far as other stuff goes, the website is been slowly but surely being updated. I am still looking for feedback on things that do or don't work. I know the website is clunky in a lot of places and cobbled together hodgepodge over several years. I get that. But if you have any thoughts on what you would like to see up there, like resources that would be helpful, please do let me know. Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Do you think adding a link to the Office of Research regarding all of the federal
That's
things?
in the works already. Yeah.
Oh, I can send you that if you want to.
Yeah, I have that. If you send it to me anyway, just make sure I have the right link.
Yeah.
But yes, that will be being added to the resources tab specifically. Yeah, there'll probably be a full like landing page of stuff that President Pines has sent out in emails, also what we have from that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on me? Because otherwise, like I said, I'm gonna keep it brief.
I had a good question.
Yeah.
So, do we have minutes of meeting of every meeting that we?
So we do, yes and no. We often do, I'm not the one who's responsible for the minutes, so I can't speak to this entirely, but we do have an official transcript that you can see being generated behind me. And that serves as the de facto minutes, but we also have agendas that are published, and if modified during the session, those modifications are made. So between the two, we have an effective set of minutes, basically.
Because I just need something to like send out to my constituents, because they keep asking me, hey,
Right.
what is JC doing? I'm like,
Yeah, the best thing is, well, so we do have also the recordings online, so there's that. So the transcript, the recordings, and the agenda items, as well as resolutions that are posted when they're passed up on the site. And I saw that, TJ had a question, yeah.
Just to ask about the elections that are coming up too.
Oh, yes. Are you, are you talking about the general elections or the upcoming midterm elections? Okay, sure. So a quick update, yeah, we did do as mentioned, we removed a fair number of people for being inactive. We also had a couple of people express interest, which triggers a special election. We just finished one round of elections this week, and we'll be starting starting Monday. I think we have another 4 coming up. But then also in May, the general election will be happening, just as a reminder. And that is where the president, as well as, is it still the VP? Well, we are debating whether or not to have, what level of like, whether the assembly will be electing what VPs and what versus what the general, like, graduate student body will be electing. But officer elections are coming up, is what I'm trying to say here. That's also where we're gonna be having votes on the constitutional amendments. So just so you have a time frame for that as well.
Share the usual, channel link.
Sure. Yeah, it is on the website, but I will also share it in the, like, the assembly chat, just so we can.
Yeah, so that like it's forwarded to your constituents and like, hey, here's what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And those, with the exception of the January meetings is still not up there because we had to edit sections out. Because there was an information embargo on some of them, so like the transcript is still intact, but the visual section isn't. And Premiere has been being a royal pain, so it has been a process, but those will be going up together. This will probably be up Monday afternoon is usually when these recordings are on those websites. Okay. Otherwise, can you give us back?
Motion to move, no, thank you. I'm gonna call for a motion to move to new business and legislation.
Seconded.
Perfect.
Yeah, seconded, motion.
Motion to move on.
Seconded.
Seconded,
There.
perfect. Rose, well, first we gotta pull them up. But Rose, do you wanna start talking about legislation before you run? Up to you,
Sure, which one?
either or both. Everyone's. First number. It is.
Yeah, I don't know what order they're in.
Yours isn't actually the first one, but I know that you.
No, yes.
So it's to support the Senate proposal, then the call for UMD to change the fee structure, and then the abolish the 125 international student fee.
Okay. So, yeah, the first one.
Sure, you wanna go to the boarding?
Oh, not really.
Okay, so the first one, the fee structure, is about the Maryland English Institute fees. So for those of y'all who don't know, international grads, when they get accepted, to the University of Maryland, they have to have certain scores on English proficiency exams. If you don't have the required scores, you can be accepted, with a basically like requirement that you have to take these English courses at the Maryland English Institute. However, all of these courses are not covered, are not for credit and you're required to pay this like extra like thousands of dollars fee in order to take this course. It's a financial burden for a lot of folks. Especially because there's a lot of research showing that the correlation between like your socioeconomic status growing up in like a non-US country is correlated with your English proficiency. People who come from poor socioeconomic backgrounds don't always have the means and ability to be able to get tutors or like practice their English. And then that factors into like their test scores and stuff. So, I looked through all of the other Big Ten schools. 13 of the 17 peer institutions in the Big Ten offer these similar English courses. But they do so in a way that allows you to use any tuition remission. that you might have as part of your assistantship to cover these courses. A few other universities will cover the fees entirely for eligible students. And specifically, there's also a specific like teaching assistant course that like TAs have to take as part of their job as a TA. And so some other universities in the Big Ten will cover these fees for the TA courses. So in total, 16 out of the 17 peer institutions in the Big Ten do not charge these extra fees for their English program courses, and graduate assistants are able to cover them in one way or another. So UMD, clear outlier here among our peers. So this is calling for a change in the structure so that they are either covered entirely by the school, or that they can be covered somehow by tuition remission for grad assistants.
Discussion.
I have a discussion point. I fully stand behind this resolution. It's very important. I know one of my close friends was impacted by this and had to pull thousands of dollars out of the thin air after moving to a country where basically 50% of his paycheck is going towards rent and living expenses. And I want to point out, I stand on a Provost Graduate Advisory Council on behalf of the College of Education, and I brought this up to Dean Roth and Provost Rice on the 5th of February, and they informed me that they're in the works of doing something like this, and Navarro was there too, and they're wanting to push this towards a tuition remission guideline, so they're wanting to integrate into tuition. I still want to sign this and I still want to approve this, but I just wanted to let everyone know that I believe there is something in the works at the provost level. And within that, I also pleaded that they consider, like, if they're not able to move to the tuition aspect, that they consider allowing students on a case-by-case basis to request emergency funding for this. They said no, but they said that they can request funding through the deficits that they may face. That can come up from having to pay this thousands of dollars towards the institute. So basically, Dean Roth basically said, if a student can't afford rent because of that payment, they should practice rent in their communication for emergency funding, not I need help covering this institute fee. Just wanted to include that for others to be aware. Laura,
Yeah. So to add to.
use a microphone so they can hear you on Zoom.
Oh, Yvonne has one.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Hello, okay. So, similar to what Brandon mentioned, this was a discussion that me and Devon were a part of, with the graduate school. So it's basically a council with the deans and professors from different departments. And this was something that came up at that point too. It was last semester that they were making some amendments to the way the language was worded for this. And what they mentioned were that they are actually pro this. So to back this up, like this is a great thing to support. And I feel like the grad school is still, like they have been trying to do this since like last semester. And I think there are other programs too, which face a lot of issues with this. Like I can talk for my program, even to apply for TA-ships and stuff, you need to have the English requirement exam taken or the test taken, but that does not guarantee that you'll get a TA-ship. So that money that you have spent, it could be from your own pocket too. Like it's not after you get a TA-ship. So I think this is like a great initiative and like totally support it. So yeah.
Nancy.
Sorry.
Nancy, Public Policy. So this is an interesting issue. I wasn't fully aware of like, because I know some of my peers have had to take this course and I didn't realize the cost of it. And also I had a couple questions about it. So with the fact that it's not for credit, does that like, so if we were to use like tuition remission for these courses, would that be like, I guess my concern is like, I don't know if departments would like give tuition remission for a course that's not necessarily like for the, like, it's not related to the subject matter. So like if they were like an engineering, like, oh, like this language class, like we're not giving you tuition remission because it's not like, of course, it's like indirectly related, because yeah, it's the language you need to like, that'll help you in those classes, but that's kind of a concern I have about it. But so yeah. Or just general inquiry.
So. Okay, so you're saying that like the departments might not want to pay for this course if they.
Like, would it be count as a like, could they get tuition remission for a class that's not related to the degree?
As far as I'm aware, at other universities, like they are able to do this. And it would be a like non-degree course, so like whatever like grade you end up getting, like wouldn't go towards your GPA or anything like that. We already have some departments on campus that voluntarily will pay for this, for some GAs, or grad students in their program. But obviously, you know, like I only know of a couple, and it's not equal across, departments at all. It seems to be the ones that I know of are a little more well-funded than some of the other departments on campus. And so, you know, like, part of this is also like an equity thing, making sure that folks who are not in those well-funded departments can also have, not have to pay these fees.
Thank you, Rose, for bringing this up. I guess my other question sort of, related, oh, sorry, Nora, epidemiology, PhD program, sorry, I forgot. My question was about, I know in the epi department, we have to get all of our courses that we take approved. And some are not, don't qualify for tuition remission if they aren't approved by our program plan. So I am wondering if another way to potentially get around these fees is to propose, like a common fund, like we did for the disability. If this does not, if the admin decides that this is just not the coolest resolution, I'm just wondering what your thoughts were. Thank you.
That's why there's a part that says the school should cover these fees entirely.
Great, thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Mata and I'm from the Masters of Robotics. I wanted to speak about this issue. Actually, many of my friends had faced this issue. And it was a conditional admission when university granted the admission, and they had time till completion of their first semester to change their scores. So they had the option to give the language test again here in US if they wanted to, and then change their scores. One issue I saw is that the tests like PTE or IELTS or TOEFL, there are very less dates available for the people to give that particular test. So people had very less time to prepare and then give the test. And a lot of people, one of my roommate himself was unable to do it before the deadline. And now he has to write that, take that course with thousands of dollars. So I think considering that deadline would also be another thing which I believe the department can do. And yeah, as you said, the like putting thousands of dollars for that course, like coming from a different country, I believe that it would be hard. And I think as she mentioned, the TA-ship and all, they have a different requirements compared to that of the admission requirements. So when someone wants to apply for TA-ship, at least in my department, we have to take the language test again. But then again, all of my core courses, I have 4 core courses and all the 4 courses doesn't have any TA. So I don't see why I need to take the language test again and then apply for TA, which I won't even get. So I wanted to see like if there's any option for this and see if it can move forward.
That might be like a separate thing, but I know some other schools will also cover the cost of any additional like tests and stuff. So that might be another thing to write up, is to have the school cover the cost of that.
Hi, I'm Farooq from Mechanical Engineering. So, I totally support this. I'm trying to figure out how we can solve this. So can we quantify these numbers? Like how many students, per year, have to appear for this course? So that we have like a ballpark of what kind of a fund we are looking for, because I feel like, it would be very difficult to get this funding from respective schools, especially engineering. I don't, I'm saying this off the record, but anyway, so we need to like quantify these numbers so that we can figure out how we can manage, to solve this issue.
Yeah, I did not look into how many people take this course. I'm sure that's some information we can get. I will point out, the university, at the university level, last year, they had $400 million of extra unrestricted funding that was not used. They have the money to cover these things.
Hi, my name is Alin Almeida and I'm a representative from the Information Science Department. As you mentioned, this problem is quite faced with various peers of my department. I in fact have a friend who had to give an exam, I think so IELTS twice to kind of clear this requirement, because it's not just the overall score, but even if you fail to get part, because there are 4 sections, that's speaking, writing. So even if you fail in one part, you have to kind of give the exam entirely again for that. And I know of a fact that Rose was telling that some institutions kind of waive this fees out or include a remission for something. In other schools, John Hopkins does that. So I think so we should be able to do that, especially because someone mentioned that if this fees are affecting someone's rent, because from a different country, these expensive can be quite, because expensive for us. So there should be an option where then if it affects someone's rent or something, then the rent should be given a priority.
Just wanted to clarify something. I said that from that Dean Griff. What are words? Dean Roth, too many beans. Let's look at that.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'd like to motion to waive that from the record. The Dean Roth, I meant to say, I mentioned that he claimed that this was going to be possibly converted into tuition as a whole. I wanted to clarify that he said he wanted to turn it into a credit course that students can register for, therefore receive remission or just pay normal tuition credit hours for it. Just wanted to clarify that really quickly, and also move to vote. Motion to vote, yeah.
Second.
For that, Rose is just gonna explain the other one too before she runs through her.
Yeah, I gotta like leave, so. But the second one that I have is a resolution to abolish the $125 international student fee. That, again, international students have to pay this every semester. It's an additional financial burden for folks that are already kind of disadvantaged because they are not able to take second jobs due to their visa restrictions usually. In addition to like having to pay for all of these extra tests and visa fees and all of the other stuff. This fee was also originally just imposed on students in 2017. It is not a very old fee. And didn't go through the kind of like proper channels when it was originally introduced. And then I have also gathered information from the school as to how exactly these fees are used. And so over the course of 2020 to 2024, There's been slightly over $3 million that were raised. And on the website, it says that these fees go to support, enhances support for UMD international students. But the vast majority of these fees go towards base level functionality for things like ISSS, for things like the registrar, the graduate school. These are all things that like they need to do anyways if they are going to accept international students. Yeah, like the list was like to pay for like government mandated equipment. And like assessing credits and like transcripts, like these, you have to do this to have international students. So why are international students being asked to pay for the basic stuff that they need to be students here in the first place? Again, peer institutions in the Big Ten, a lot of them will either cover the fee for graduate assistants through their union contracts, or do not charge an additional international student fee. I think that's it.
Perfect. For the purpose of this discussion, I want to limit it to questions. Any discussion in support or in opposition of this can be communicated right before the voting session, but any questions for Rose at this time?
Just a quick clarification. Are you saying abolish for grad and undergrad or just grad students?
That's a great question. I was thinking of grads for this specific, but like, why not undergrads as well?
I think we don't have a lot of international undergrads when compared with the grad students, so.
Yeah, it would be mostly grads, I can buy this.
Okay, quick question, another way, and I just thought about when this happened, have you considered this is a like requirement of them coming to university, all of this visa stuff, all that's built in? Okay, well, they just kind of threw in a bunch of fees into tuition, could potentially propose also doing the same thing versus just abolishing it. It's all fake money anyway, they have billions of dollars. Anyway.
Yeah, that could be another solution. I know that like some of the arguments that the grad school has made, when we have tried to push on this in the past, is that, oh, like they charge, like other schools will charge higher tuition for international students.
Yeah.
And I think that is in a way, yeah. Like that's probably because they rolled the fees into that. So. I mean, I think we should just get rid of it entirely if we can. As a
Agree
first
with
step,
that, but
but-
yes.
Other questions?
Brandon Rodriguez, Toronto Higher Education. I also agree that there's a lot of room within the budget at the institutional level and things should just move around because this is something that we already have to provide.
Yeah.
So why don't we just make it equal for all and expand ISSS resources to the entire community? Perhaps for consulting students with wanting to apply for visas internationally. I know the study abroad office is there, of course, but maybe there's room for a combination of efforts across the institution and across different offices on campus that can be brought up in the future.
Great question.
Okay.
Hi, Nancy, Public Policy. So I'm curious if like, I'm not sure if it could be an amendment or just kind of a consideration of like, instead of totally removing the fee, if we could at least like lower it. And kind of like I'd really like to see a breakdown of like, because I know they talk about these like, oh, like government appliances or these visa processes, but I really want to see a breakdown of like, where does this fee exactly go? Because I mean, I like to think it's doing something. It's not just like targeting international students. So I think even if maybe it's an amendment or we kind of include just like a general decrease of this from $125, I think that would still be progress and I'd like to see a breakdown of it.
Amendment for transparency.
Yeah, amendment.
Yeah. Or yeah, that they report that back to us, so yeah.
I mean, I got these, you can public information request these. And that's how I got this. There's a footnote somewhere that has a, like, the breakdown that they give us, the last one, number 3. I think that's about as detailed as you can get. Of course, you know, if you scroll down, they talk about like, you know, most of the student fee, for OIA goes to paying staff at ISSS. Yeah, I highlighted some of the kind of like bits that made it, into the bill itself or legislation itself. But yeah, I don't know if we can like get any more details than like the offices went to, or like the offices it went to, like, I don't know if they can say exactly like, we paid for this government mandated piece of equipment that cost, I don't know, $100,000 or whatever, so.
Can I just add?
I mean, that's like electricity, like the space, like.
Are we
Stuff like that.
separated like international?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I'm assuming it goes towards like the ISSS, like office space or something.
But again, that's inherent to the university.
Again, yeah.
So why is that suddenly like a needed fee of $125?
Right, right.
Michael, and then Laura. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I just wanted to say, just in response to some stuff that was just said, that number one, we did when we met with Dean Roth this past, I think it was in November, we talked about the international student fee. Actually, maybe it was earlier. But he did say that like, basically even, okay, 2 things. One, that like, he is happy to like press even without like people wanting to abolish it for like greater transparency, take that for what you will. And then number 2, he had a discussion, I think it was in this meeting, where he talked about basically the fact that like these costs do need to be paid for by like someone. And is this something that we should like stretch out amongst like the general student body, or just put on the backs essentially of international students? To which, yeah, I would say that like, I think international students bring, you know, whether or not we want to ask ISSS to like do more, like helping us apply for visas to other countries, I think that's probably too much of a reach. But like, I do think that like international students bring a lot to our campus, just by being here. And so I think there's plenty of, reason to spread that cost out amongst everyone, then put it on international students.
Once again, the unrestricted funding that the university has is over $400 million. They also pay the football coach, who won, what, 4 games last year?
Woo, 4 games.
$6 million.
Well, it's pretty good money. Always what I hear.
But, you know, it's, at the end of the day, like, a budget shows priorities. So that's my argument for that.
Hi, I'd like to address something. I'm Gitika and I'm representing cybersecurity. I've seen this problem for quite some time since I joined this university, which was in 2023. Regarding the career opportunities that are available for international students. My concern was if they are charging us an international student fee, why aren't they, or are they even using these funds for doing something for us when it comes to careers? Because I've seen a lot of I've seen in the career fair and a lot of companies, they only hire those with citizenship or with a green card, but UMD has not been able to invite a lot of companies who sponsor visa for students. So that was my concern. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you why they're not doing that. I think they should.
Transparency would allow to.
Again, yeah, transparency.
I just wanted to add to that, so, they should do more, and I totally like agree with you, because we're in the same program, but the thing is, why cybersecurity in particular faces that issues, because we're in the DMV area, where majority are government contractors. So I just want to point that out because I know a lot of other programs in Village itself that have way more companies coming for international students too, just because they're not in cybersecurity, because for cybersecurity in the DMV area, government contractors, you need clearance, for that you need citizenship. So I just want to point that out.
Hi, I just wanted to, my name is Bianca, I'm the representative from the English department. I wanted to just ask how the university justifies accepting international students if they do not have funds for them, if they do not have infrastructure for them, and they require an additional international student fee to be able to pay for them while charging them an out-of-station tuition fee to begin with. So if there are no grounds on which this international student fee is justified, and there have been many instances where this kind of breakdown of, oh, this money was here and there, but it still seems very bogus to me or made up to me in a way that if you do not have infrastructure for international students who bring so much money and resources to this university, you should stop accepting them. If it's so bad and it's such a liability, but if you're accepting them and bringing them here, you cannot really make them pay even more than the out-of-state tuition fee, and then force them to, kind of abide by this sort of very made-up explanation of where this money is going. The other point is that, and I think they're raising this very well about, how career fairs do not adequately support international students. A lot of my friends right now are going through cycles of just, trying to get hired. And what has emerged is that there's no particular, particularly in the departments where students end up paying a lot of, fee for these professional courses. I'm lucky that I'm in a, humanities department where we get state funding for master's degree as well. Ours is not a professional course, comes with a different set of challenges, but still, we do not have to pay these kind of ludicrous fee for these professional courses. My question is, even with this kind of international student fee, there is no adequate support for professionalization of international students. Even the career services that you have are very inadequate. They do not guide students enough to actually land a job that would allow them to make use of the degree that they're spending so much money for by being in the States. So something to say about how, just there is just no justification for this money, and a lot of students are still kind of struggling, even though they pay so much money for in terms of out-of-state tuition fee, in terms of international student fee, mandatory fee, and they still do not get adequate resources that allows them this sort of peace of mind and security of, being employed by the end of their degrees. So something to think about when we, when these justifications are given to us.
Motion to vote.
Seconded.
Oh, also, I just want to say, the format on these resolutions is going to change, but the verbiage, the language itself is not going to change.
I was actually about to say something very similar. But it is something to be worth keep in mind. There was formatting oddities that just didn't get resolved before this. They will be archived, but the language is, as mentioned, all the same. But if people wanted to raise a procedural issue against voting, that's a valid reason. But just so you know, language is great. And it'll just look different on the website, is what I'm trying to say.
For folks online, I'm going to launch the poll. We're going to start with resolution number 4, which is the Maryland English Institute. So for the purpose of those voting inside, we're going to do a simple hand raise. If you don't raise your hand, I'm going to count that as an abstain rather than a no. If you are adamant about voting no on this, I don't know, maybe hold up 2 fingers and not the whole hand, but, or you could just speak up in the moment and I'll.
No.
Yes. Perfect. So the poll is being launched. Those that are representatives, please vote online. Those in person, hand raise in favor.
For which one?
The Maryland English Institute, the first one. Just the number, well, it's a majority.
Yeah. It's all like here. So one.
Michael can't vote, right?
Michael cannot vote.
Okay, so everyone's fine.
Perfect. Please keep your hand up.
Really up there.
Thank
Don't slouch.
This is unanimous in the room.
21 to 1.
Yes.
Oh, abstain.
Okay. I'm saying.
So one of say one no.
Yeah, and 21 yays.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you to my wonderful colleagues on your assistance in the process. Okay, perfect. Moving to the second vote, this is, I'm just gonna quickly share results. In person, it passed with the majority. Going to the second poll back, oh, sorry, I'm blind, guys. Going to resolution number 5, which is the international student fee, launching it, same rules in person, raise your hand. You're abstain, actually, yeah, if you're abstaining, you can do this, and if you're no, just leave your hand down.
Okay, 18 yays. 18 yays, 3 abstains and 1 no.
Two no's that I can hear. There's one no here and then one.
I counted them.
And then one in person.
Yeah.
Two in person,
2 no's, okay.
were there 2 in person?
No, one.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Thank
Awesome. Again, majority said yes. Thank you to those that voted. Thank you, Rose. Moving to our last piece of legislation, and I hope some of you did catch on to it. We went out of order. Rose had to leave. But we're going to resolution number 3, and I'll hand it quickly over to Nora to introduce the resolution.
Yeah, so, the University Senate already proposed a bereavement policy and it got approved. The student government for the undergrads also proposed a similar bill and it also was approved. This bill has been in the works by a PhD psychology student who graduated a few years ago. They started it during COVID. And Peace is the one who brought it to the Senate and then brought it to me to bring to GSG. So if you guys have any questions about it, it's really just calling for a better bereavement policy for GAs and TAs. To be more inclusive of what it means to have a family or friends. As right now, as the language stands currently, it's family only or to be interpreted by professors when we really deserve clearer language for professors and for us as TAs as well. So it calls for also resources for us to help to help students also who have bereavement issues. So if we are bereaved, we cannot help our own students that are also going through grief. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm here. Thank you.
Discussion. Nancy.
So would this, Nancy for policy, so would this count for like partners or like people, like if you're not like officially married, does that like counts for them or, okay?
Yeah, it also, it's inclusive to LGBTQ family and also families that have extended relatives that might be considered more close. As opposed to like a nuclear family tradition.
Other questions, concerns, thoughts, Swaroop?
I'm actually trying to understand like the extent of like whom it affects and whom it not. And also, generally, like when something like this happens, they talk to their advisor or whoever the superior is and ask for a leave. And will this resolution will basically like help them get those leaves? Is that what it means?
Yes. This is specifically for students who have experienced a loss. So for those who are grieving and they need time to either go home across the ocean which takes extra time, especially to attend certain types of funerals with cultural values. Taking that into account into the bereavement policy is something that we want to do, because as it stands right now, it's really built for undergrads that are in Maryland, that have family. But you can also lose a friend or a pet, or an extended family member, or someone who is like a family member. And we want to include those people in the bereavement policy. Yeah, and it's also specific to GAs and TAs so that you can take time off of work. Because as it stands right now, it's really more for academic time off from classes, but we want to be inclusive towards those workers as well with the bereavement policy.
Thank you for clarifying.
Motion to extend, stop
Sorry.
turning it off. Motion to extend our meeting by 5 minutes or allow for voting.
Looking at this, Bill, just curious, is the scope both length and definition of what is considered leave? Or is it really just looking at the definition of who is included within that bereavement leave? Or just like reader length policy? The reason I ask this is we're looking at, for example, international bereavement going back, that is a time issue versus
Yeah.
a definition issue of like who should be included in the umbrella of bereavement.
So it's about increasing flexibility in bereavement for graduate students to be amenable to international student needs as well as LGBTQ needs. And so people are, so that professors, when they say, no, you can't leave for 2 weeks, there's actually bereavement policy that says, no, you actually have to be culturally inclusive with the ways that we give bereavement to certain students when they experience a loss that might not be their parent. You know, so let's say you lose your uncle, but your uncle was really close, but that's not in the nuclear family, so it's not necessarily included. Or you lose your uncle who's not even related to you by blood, you still want to go to the funeral. This is for all of those people that have obstacles because their loss doesn't fit a certain definition. So it's really about expanding the definition of loss as well as those who experience it. Yeah.
I just had one doubt. Is this bereavement policy only for GAs or is it for all graduate student workers?
All graduate student workers, or all graduate students, period.
Motion to vote.
Second.
Perfect. Again, for those online, this is going to be resolution number 3. I will launch the poll. And again, those in person, hands for yay. You could do a visual in the middle for an abstain and keep your hand down for a no.
Is that a yes or a maybe?
Maybe, that's it.
Please abstain.
Unanimous yes on the call.
I got 14. I got 14 in person.
Is
Is that a yes?
Are you doing it?
Okay, yes.
9, 10, 11, 12,
Three,
13, 14, 14 yeas, and I missed that one, so 3 abstains. Okay, so 17 yeas, 0 no's, and 3 abstain.
Perfect. Majority, the resolution number 3 passes. Showing quick result for everyone that. Thank you all for being here, for participating, for being active. Brandon already extended the meeting for 5 minutes, so we're going to like 2:03 because he did that at 1:58. I just want to, and somebody else can motion if we want to extend another 5 minutes or something like that. But I want us to have an intentional time to talk about what's going on regarding education, regarding where we are, regarding the state that we're in. So that we can have this intimate discussion rather than us getting half information from the news or half information from the administration or just not having all the answers. And again, we don't have the answers as a collective, but we just need to be in community with one another. So right now, we're gonna just close the session we're going into closed session, have an intimate discussion around the state of education, the state of higher education, just how are we feeling in this time? And Keegan, just give me the thumbs up when we're good.
Remember to stop recording as well.
Oh, yes. Let's stop share. Just pause the recording, right? There's.
That's I.
Not yet.
I-
Yeah, I,
I
nay,
guess
yay,
yay
yay,
accepts
nay.
somewhere.
It should be yay or nay. Motion to make it yay or nay?
Oh, I collected it as yes, so.
You didn't count?
I have to talk more in this meeting than I ever did.
You did. Didn't actually notice, but
It was nice to hear your voice.
I'm usually just here in the corner.